He was 75 years old. A gentle soul with a quiet smile and a second chance at love. His first wife had passed away years earlier, and after a long time of loneliness, he met someone new. They got married in a small garden ceremony surrounded by children, grandchildren, and a few old friends who still believed in romance. That night, full of joy and nervous anticipation, he and his new bride shared their first intimate moment. It was supposed to be tender, a celebration. But something went wrong. He collapsed shortly after. Cardiac arrest. Thankfully, he survived. But the moment left everyone shaken, confused, even a little afraid. At the hospital, his doctor explained that it wasn't the intimacy itself that caused the episode. It was the shock to a body that had gone too long without touch, connection, and movement. For nearly 15 years, Jack hadn't just stopped having sex. He had stopped feeling close. His heart, both emotionally and physically, had grown unaccustomed to being awakened. This isn't an uncommon story. Many older adults quietly let go of intimacy, believing it no longer matters. Some do it out of fear, of embarrassment, of physical failure, or simply because they think that part of life is over. Others stop because of grief, long-standing routines, or just the slow drift of time. But the truth is, our bodies don't forget. They just grow quiet when ignored. Jack's story isn't meant to scare you. It's a reminder. The body needs gradual, gentle connection. Just like we wouldn't go on a 5-mile run after sitting on the couch for a decade, we shouldn't expect to jump into intimacy after years of distance. It takes time, kindness, and above all, awareness. You see, physical connection is more than just physical. It's a full body experience that touches the heart, the brain, the joints, even the immune system. When we lose that layer of life, piece by piece, we begin to feel smaller. Not just in body, but in spirit. Jack told his doctor something days after he left the hospital that stayed with me. I didn't feel old until I tried to feel young again. But here's the thing. He wasn't trying to feel young. He was trying to feel alive. There's a difference. So I invite you to reflect for a moment, not on Jack's scare, but on what it revealed. That intimacy at any age is not about performance or youth. It's about closeness, warmth, and vitality. And when we stop reaching for those things, our bodies adapt. They quiet down, they conserve. And sometimes when they're finally asked to open again, they panic. But it doesn't have to be that way. What if, instead of letting go of intimacy altogether, we learn to hold it differently? What if it became softer, slower, more intentional, but still essential? Because, as we'll explore next, it's not just your heart that responds to touch and closeness. Your entire body, from head to toe, is quietly listening. And when intimacy fades, it doesn't fade alone. Something deeper begins to slip away. Let's talk about what that is. A few years ago, I had 2 patients come in for their annual checkups. Both were in their 70s, both lived alone, and both were managing the usual things: blood pressure, cholesterol, a little joint stiffness. But something stood out. Mr. Harris, a retired music teacher, had this spark in his step. His heart rate was steady, his circulation strong, and he even joked that he felt better now than he did in his 50s. Then there was Miss Elaine, sweet, quiet, and kind. But she looked tired. Her energy was low, her sleep was poor, and her heart showed early signs of stress. At first glance, it seemed like a typical difference in health outcomes. But as I got to know them better, I noticed something quietly powerful. Mr. Harris had recently started dating again. Nothing dramatic, just gentle companionship, hand-holding, and the kind of connection that lights a person up from the inside. Meanwhile, Miss Elaine had been living alone for nearly 15 years after her husband passed. No affection, no touch, just a lot of silent evenings. It reminded me of something I often say to my patients. Your heart doesn't just respond to medication and diet. It responds to love, to closeness, to being held. Sexual activity at any age acts like a gentle form of cardiovascular exercise. It increases your heart rate, improves blood flow, and helps maintain the elasticity of your blood vessels. Think of it like taking a slow walk up a hill while holding someone's hand. Not only does your body move, but your heart engages in a way that's deeply human. Studies have even shown that seniors who remain sexually active tend to have lower blood pressure, fewer heart-related complications, and better overall circulation. It's not about performance or frequency. It's about consistency and connection. A touch, a kiss, an embrace, they all signal safety and aliveness to your nervous system. One of my favorite expressions is this: when you hug someone, your heart remembers you're alive. It's more than poetic. It's biologically true. Oxytocin, sometimes called the cuddle hormone, is released during physical touch and intimacy. It calms the heart, lowers stress, and tells your body you're safe, you're connected. When we go too long without that kind of connection, the heart starts to work a little harder. Stress hormones increase, inflammation creeps in, and slowly, without even realizing it, the rhythm of your body begins to change. This doesn't mean that intimacy has to look a certain way. For some, it's a warm hand resting on a partner's knee. For others, it might be a slow dance in the kitchen or lying quietly beside someone, listening to their breathing. These moments carry weight. They matter. They help your heart remember that it's not just pumping blood, it's participating in something deeper. So if you've been feeling a little more tired lately, or noticing that stairs feel steeper, or that your chest feels heavy, not just physically but emotionally, it may be time to ask, when was the last time your heart felt held? Because as we continue, you'll see that it's not only your heart that longs for connection. Your muscles, your joints, and even your posture are whispering the same thing. Please don't let me go quiet. A few winters ago, I met a woman named Margaret. She was 68, recently recovered from a fractured hip, and had come to see me for a follow-up. When I asked how she was healing, she smiled mischievously and said, "Well, I started dancing again." I blinked, surprised. Margaret had been in physical therapy for months, and the last I heard, she still needed a cane. She leaned forward and whispered, "His name is Lewis. He's 72. We meet every Thursday at the senior centre. Slow dancing, nothing fancy." Then she chuckled. "And sometimes we don't wait for Thursdays." What struck me wasn't just her physical progress, it was how radiant she looked. Her steps were lighter, her posture more confident, her joints, which had once stiffened from fear of falling, were moving with renewed ease. The X-rays confirmed what her energy already told me. Her body was healing faster than expected. And it wasn't just the physical therapy. It was movement tied to emotion, connection, joy. You see, many of us think about muscle strength and flexibility only in terms of workouts, stretching, walking, lifting. But intimacy in all its forms is physical too. Sexual activity gently activates core muscles, pelvic floor, thighs, arms, even posture. It improves circulation, encourages natural lubrication in joints, and supports balance. It's not vigorous like a spin class, but it doesn't need to be. It's natural movement tied to emotion, and that's what makes it so powerful. As we age, one of the greatest risks to independence is not illness, it's mobility loss. We stop moving because movement hurts, or because we're afraid, or because we feel like we have no reason to. And when we stop moving, we stiffen. Then we isolate. Then we weaken. But the body doesn't just need movement, it craves meaningful movement, the kind that makes you feel wanted, present, and alive. That's why Margaret healed. She wasn't just stretching her legs, she was stretching her spirit. You may not think of intimacy as exercise, but your body does. Even the gentlest forms of closeness, cuddling, kissing, lying skin to skin, encourage your muscles to stay engaged, your joints to stay supple. And just as importantly, they restore confidence in your ability to move with purpose. I often ask my older patients a quiet question. When was the last time you moved, not because you had to, but because you felt something? When was the last time you trembled? Not from pain or fear, but from joy, from anticipation, from the warmth of being close to someone who sees you fully? Because your body remembers those moments, your legs, your arms, your back. They come alive when touch is involved, not just as a task, but as a response. And that brings us to something just as vital, your mind, because what your muscles do, your brain feels. And when intimacy fades, something in our mental sharpness begins to dim as well. Let's take a gentle step into that together. There was an older gentleman I used to see every few months, Mr. Arnold. He was in his early 80s, a retired history professor with kind eyes and a mind that once held volumes of dates, names, and stories. But with time, those memories began to slip. He'd forget appointments, repeat questions, misplace his keys. Nothing alarming at first, just the soft unravelling we often chalk up to age. But what struck me wasn't the memory loss. It was what happened when his wife was beside him. One afternoon, they sat in my office while I asked him a few standard cognitive questions. He struggled, as usual, until his wife reached over, took his hand and softly said, "Remember our song?" His eyes lit up. "Moon River," he whispered. And then he sang the first few notes. Just like that, something clicked. It was subtle but powerful. The warmth in his voice, the steadiness in his expression. It was as though her touch had tugged a thread loose in his mind and pulled something back to the surface, something tender, something real. That's the quiet magic of intimacy on the aging brain. You see, during physical closeness, whether it's a hug, a kiss, or simply holding hands, your brain releases powerful chemicals. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, dopamine, the pleasure chemical, endorphins, nature's pain relievers. These aren't just feel-good for light moments. They are biological cues to your brain that you are connected, safe, and alive. These neurochemicals help regulate mood, reduce anxiety, and sharpen focus. They stimulate areas of the brain associated with memory and recognition. And over time, they help create a kind of emotional scaffolding, one that protects the mind against the dulling effects of isolation. When physical intimacy disappears, that stimulation slows. Without those hormonal sparks, the brain begins to dim, memory can blur, names fade faster. Even moods shift more easily towards sadness or confusion. Now, I'm not saying that holding hands will cure dementia, but I am saying that our brains respond beautifully to affection. And just as we train the body with movement and stretch, we can train the mind with closeness and touch. So I gently ask you, when was the last time you were held long enough to forget what day it was, but remember how loved you are? Are we losing our memories because of time, or because we've stopped feeding the parts of us that keep those memories alive? If the answer makes you pause, that's okay. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one touch, to remind the brain that it still matters, that the story isn't over, that you're still part of a dance, a song, a memory waiting to be recalled. Because from here, we begin to see something even deeper. The emotional thread that connects your mind to your heart and your partner. And when that thread frays, something more fragile begins to slip away. Let's take a look at that next. Helen was 74 when she first came to see me. Her physical health was decent, blood pressure under control, cholesterol stable, no major illnesses. But something about her seemed dimmed. Her shoulders drooped when she walked in. Her voice was soft, careful. And when I asked how she was feeling, she paused and said, "Lonely, even though I'm not alone." She'd been married to her husband, Bill, for over 50 years. They still lived in the same house, slept in the same bed, shared meals and laundry in a quiet routine. But somewhere along the way, the tenderness had vanished. "It's been 10 years, she whispered. 10 years since he kissed me." That kind of silence isn't always loud. It doesn't come with fights or slammed doors. It often arrives slowly through unspoken distance, the absence of touch, the way two people start living side by side rather than truly together. Helen said, "We talk about the weather. We remind each other to take pills. But I can't remember the last time he looked at me like I was, someone he once chose." And that kind of emotional separation, it hurts just as much, sometimes more, than being physically alone. Research has shown that emotional intimacy is essential to human well-being, especially in older adults. When that bond erodes, it doesn't just impact mood, it affects the entire body. Loneliness has been linked to increased levels of stress hormones like cortisol. It can weaken the immune system, making it harder to fight off infections. It raises blood pressure, disrupts sleep, and yes, contributes to feelings of sadness and even depression. But the saddest part is this: many couples don't even realize it's happening. It's easy to believe that once the children are grown and life slows down, the romantic part of a relationship naturally fades. That this stage is about companionship, not closeness. But the truth is, emotional intimacy doesn't have an expiration date, and when it disappears, something sacred goes missing. I often tell my patients that touch isn't just about the body, it's about being seen. Being reminded, without words, that you still matter. A hand resting on your back in the kitchen, a kiss on the forehead before sleep. These are small things, but they are the heartbeat of connection. Helen's story stayed with me because it wasn't about blame. She didn't resent her husband. She missed him, missed being known by him. And when emotional distance grows unchecked, that's what's lost, the feeling of being truly known and loved. If you've been feeling a quiet ache, not in your bones but in your spirit, ask yourself, are we close or just near? Because even in the stillness of long companionship, the heart needs warmth. And when it's gone, the body remembers. It shows up in restless nights, lowered immunity, a vague sense that something's missing. But the beautiful truth is, it's never too late to reach across the bed, across the years, and begin again. And sometimes that simple act of closeness can ripple into the deepest places, including the quiet hours of the night, where the next piece of your well-being quietly waits. Let's talk about that next. Not long ago, I spoke with a gentleman in his late 70s who quietly confessed, "I think my body's forgotten how to be close." He said it with a small laugh, but I could hear the uncertainty behind his words. "It's been so long," he added. "I don't even know where to begin anymore." And I told him something I've said to many others. You haven't lost it. You've just fallen out of practice. Like a favorite song you haven't heard in years, your body just needs a few notes to remember the rhythm. As we age, it's true that our bodies change. Blood flow slows, muscles lose tone, nerve endings may not fire as quickly. For men, that can mean longer arousal times or difficulty maintaining function. For women, it might show up as dryness, tenderness, or a sense of discomfort that wasn't there before. But these shifts aren't signs that your body is broken. They're signs that it needs warmth, patience, and reawakening. Think of the pelvic area, those deep muscles and soft tissues, as a garden. When watered and tended gently, they remain healthy, responsive, and strong. But when left untouched for too long, the soil dries, the roots pull back. It doesn't mean the garden is gone, it means it's waiting for care. Touch stimulates blood flow. Connection nourishes tissue. Even small gestures, a hand placed over a heart, a soft kiss on the shoulder, a long-held hug, send messages to the brain and body that say, "Wake up, you're safe here." Sometimes people tell me it just feels awkward to start again. I understand. After months, even years without intimacy, it can feel like you're trying to speak a language you've forgotten. But the beautiful part is, there's no pressure to speak it perfectly. You can whisper, you can stumble. The only thing that matters is showing up. Begin with what feels easy. Hold hands during a walk, compliment your partner's eyes, sit close enough that your shoulders touch, share a memory or a moment of quiet where nothing needs to be said. Because intimacy is not a performance, it's a feeling, and feelings return when we create space for them. In fact, many people find that later in life connection is deeper, richer, more grounded. There's less urgency, less noise, just two people remembering that affection has no age limit, and neither does the body's desire to feel loved. If your body has grown quiet, don't see it as a loss. See it as a pause, one that can end with a smile, a glance, a word. And if you give your body kindness and time, it will respond. Because beneath everything, beneath the skin, the years, the hesitations, your body still remembers how to feel. It's waiting. It's waitly, patiently. And just as your body longs to be touched, your immune system longs to be awakened too. That's where we'll go next. I once met a couple who had been married for over 60 years. He was 83, she 81. Every morning, without fail, he would reach over, place his hand gently on her cheek and say, "You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." She would smile, eyes a little watery, and whisper, "And you still say it like you mean it." They had been through everything: illness, grief, quiet dinners, louder arguments, long winters, but they never let go of touch. Not because it was easy, but because it reminded them that they were still here, still alive, still someone's beloved. That kind of closeness isn't about youth or appearance, perfect timing. It's about presence, about choosing again and again to reach for the person beside you, or perhaps even for yourself. And maybe that's what I want most for you to remember. Intimacy doesn't end when the candles are blown out, or when the kids move away, or when your joints ache in the morning. It only ends when we stop believing we deserve it. You don't have to leap, just lean. Lean into a conversation you've been avoiding. Lean into a gentle touch. Lean into the idea that your body still knows how to feel warmth, even if it's been a while. And if you're unsure where to start, begin small. A smile at the breakfast table, a hand resting quietly on a knee, a simple, honest sentence: I miss being close to you. If there are physical concerns, dryness, discomfort, hesitation, talk to your doctor. These aren't failures. They're just parts of the story we don't talk about enough. And there are gentle, safe solutions waiting to support you. But more than any prescription or advice, I offer you this truth: it is not too late, not to touch, not to be touched, not to feel seen or held or wanted. Not because you need to prove anything, but because you are still worthy of being loved. Not in spite of your age, but because of everything your heart has carried to get here. So if something in this video has stirred a quiet part of you, a memory, a longing, maybe even a regret, I hope you'll sit with it a little longer tonight. Maybe write it down, maybe whisper it out loud. And if you feel like sharing that thought, or simply saying, I understand, the space below is yours. Leave a comment, press like if your heart feels a little softer now, or subscribe if you'd like to keep walking this path with me. No pressure, no noise, just the quiet knowing that you're not alone. Because sometimes the most healing thing in the world is simply remembering that someone, somewhere, is holding space for your story.